What's up, guys? So, if you're starting out playing Guns of Glory like me, here's what I know so far. More or less, I'm in Val right now, so I'm in Valeria and I'm in Kingdom 910. And I mean, as far as the game is concerned, this is pretty much everything I can tell you. So, like, the equivalent of their VIP is basically an adventure badge, and then you've got basically skills which you can then use for everything. Like in here, you got castle skins. Like just like in any. I mean, some of these are pretty cool though. Like as you can see, they've got different skins, even add-ons and stuff like that that tack on after the fact. And, they do have March skins, so I mean everything from dragons to you name it. I mean, this game has it all. It's kind of crazy. It's actually kind of wild how many of, like, just over the past 2 years that this game has been in development, how much content they have in terms of visualizations. It was kind of surprising to me, at least initially, because I was expecting this game to just kind of have like, oh yeah, it'll be just 18th century aesthetic, but no, this game's got like everything. And so of course, naturally, just like any of these games, you look at it at a glance, right? And you're trying to kind of make sense of it, right? And here's what I can tell you, right? Obviously, you've got your VIP levels, right? And that goes all the way up to, I believe, 12. And then, now obviously, once you hit VIP 12, there's stat bonuses and stuff like that. And you get different benefits at different points. One of the things you might notice right out of the gate when you're playing the game is that you'll acquire gear, and obviously gear, as we all know in a lot of these pay-to-win strategy games, is a pretty important factor, but it's not an end-all type deal. Like, it's important, right? But it's not the most important thing, because there's always something else. So, here's what you kind of have to think in mind, right? You got artillery, you got barracks, then you got a shooting range, then you got an embassy, and then you got a stable, right? So, stable is basically going to be training cavalry. Cavalry are going to kill range are going to kill infantry, and infantry are going to kill cavalry, right? Then these extra units down here we call artillery. Well, they're just to kill walls. That's it. Not much else. So most people don't bother building them because it's kind of a waste of time, right? You'll have them and you'll need to make them once in a blue moon, right? But you don't really have to navigate that angle. If anything, you tend to focus on the stats. Now, you might be saying, oh, hey, there's an airship. Well, the airship is kind of like, your mega fire or, the thing that tacks on all the bonuses. And of course, yeah, they've got skins for that. Some of these skins are pretty damn badass, though. I'm not gonna lie. Like, some of the stuff they've done for skins in this game is actually kind of wild. I mean, they have got like a stupid amount of interesting things. Like this one's really cool. Like I am like I'm impressed. Right, the epic ghost ship is pretty cool. Now, of course, yeah, you got to get it during an event, naturally. But it's like, okay, so with that in mind, you acquire guards, aka your heroes in the game, right? And then you have everything from infantry heroes to cav heroes, as indicated by that little icon on the top. So like at the top here, I can tell by looking over it, I can hover and it'll tell me distance guard. So, it's intended for this type of thing. Whether or not do they have constellation, whether or not, now if you're wondering, what is constellation? When you click on constellation and it'll tell you, whether or not they're increasing health, whether or not they're increasing attack, whether or not they're decreasing damage, blah, 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 right? So obviously, whenever you're thinking in terms of what is going to give me the most benefit when I'm fighting other players and so on and so forth, right? It almost always typically yields the infantry need to have the highest amount of HP and the highest amount of defense. Your marksmen need to have the highest amount of damage and the highest amount of, then your cavalry are obviously going to need to be fairly high level as well because that's, going to counteract their range units. And so you kind of play with this dance of fire where, well, if you increase your infantry, then that'll typically kill off yeah, the cavalry that they're sending. So there's kind of that quasi, circle of, not any one thing is terribly important, right? In any one way. And you might notice that, hey, wait a minute, this says castle. It's a garrison hero, which garrisons just are that garrison heroes. You put them on top of the wall. And, of course, if you wonder, yeah, just like any game, you go on here, you go and select your wall heroes, and obviously you have your skills, right? And each skill can then be leveled up accordingly, and you got to have such and such high enough level for said skill, and then you got the march capacity for said hero as well to tack onto that, plus the level of said hero and the tier of said hero. Yeah, in this case, they're guard, but whatever, like the phrasing here is not really important. What matters is the fact that basically the star level is going to indicate how much march capacity, and strength and intelligence, agility, and speed that they have at play at any one given time, right? And in a game like Guns of Glory, I wouldn't focus too much on the nitty gritty of this. Now, there are some things that are kind of interesting, like, for example, they have the doctor's lab, which is literally just like you jump in, and as you can see, you start doing. It's literally just like going around room to room and gathering stuff out of loot, and you hit things as you go through. It's pretty different. I'll show you here in a second. They also have a mermaid, which that's an interesting one in and of itself. And you give it gifts, and then it proceeds to give you benefits and rewards. It's like, okay, this is like Mafia City a little bit. Like, okay, but naturally, then they've got smuggler's delivery. This is the closest thing that I can think of to like, kind of like hero chapters in Lord's Bible or in White House Survival. This is like the closest thing to like you're basically doing it's basically like kill the boss type event. There's like really not a whole lot to it. As you can see, I'm just sitting here shooting a boat. That's literally the minigame. I only have 3 cannons though, and I may die. So rest in peace, my soul. If my airship doesn't kill it in time, I'm dead. So no stress. No stress. Come on. Come on. Come on. Almost there. No. Damn. Well, anyway. So, so there's that, right? Of course, just like any of these games, you have farms, then you have military tents, then you have lumberyards. So in this case, you really don't have a whole lot to worry about. You just have 3 resource types. Plus silver coins, which I don't think you have to worry about until like your castle level 15 anyway. But the main thing is the lumber yards are going to help build resource buildings. Hospitals are going to obviously heal your troops. Military tents are going to increase the training speed. As far as like your farms and such, there's not really a whole lot to it. It's just food, Now you might be thinking, okay, now hold up. All right. How does food tick away based on the amount of troops I have? As far as I can tell, the only thing that is kind of downside and like disadvantageous, right, of having a lot of resources is just somebody can raid you and take it, because the warehouse is what ultimately protects up to a certain amount. So you obviously have to kind of juggle between upgrading these. And as you might imagine, just like in any of these games, you got a lot of different things you got to basically delicately hold together. Now, there's like the astrologer, which is more or less your gambling lotto machine where it'll give you loot from time to time. And then you got your mystery jackpot, which is your bigger lotto. Your, hey, maybe you might get something good, actually good, like lotto, but most of the time it's even worse than the astrologer. And then you have Wonder Map, where it'll actually tell you where to find things on the map, and you can get loot that way. So, I mean, it's like more or less, right? You got all that. If you get up here on your profile, I guess I should mention that if, let's say, for example, you want to change your name, you can just right click here, rename. Also change your portrait. So they've got like different portraits and such. So I'll just like real quickly show you kind of like what's available. I mean, there's all sorts of like, it's pretty interesting. Like, you got you got everything from like an Indiana Jones lookalike to like, I mean, really, like you're gonna see all sorts of weird, like, okay, You got, I mean, literally everything in here, like, it is, I mean, I'm not even kidding, like, this game has got a heck of a lot in here. It's pretty kind of dang interesting, to say the least, it's like I mean, it is really different, I mean, who's to say, like, what you're gonna find? This game is kind of, like, I don't know what to say, it's like, it's really interesting, to say the least. Because it's just like, what? I mean, that's the thing. That's what kind of caught me off guard. It was, it's like coming back to Guns and Glory is kind of interesting, and it's like after a couple of years, you come back and you're like, whoa, what did they do? What did they do? And I mean, look, they even got this guy. Like, okay, like. So like anything, right? You can see you've got everything from like Diablo to pirates to people in wedding dresses to it's just it's like a mixed bag, right? As far as your portraits go, but that's the nice thing. You can really customize quite a bit. You can even upload your own photo if you wanted to. So there's really quite a bit you can do there, right? Now, of course, with that said, um, I was trying to kind of think. So, like, there's Musketeers Road where you can do a lot of the stuff free to play. So, which I'm sure a lot of people are kind of wondering, like how bad is the pay to play to free to play? I mean, I've gotten pretty far already, and I am not pay to play right now. I am purely free to play. I've not really done much of anything, and honestly, it's really not that bad for free to play. It's really not. Basically you can build a base, join a guild, and then you can sit there, occupy, take over things, teleport. You've got alliance teleports and such. The main thing is so like for example, they do have like a search function, and here you can do everything from camps to farms to sawmills to iron mills to silver lines, and then of course naturally if like for example I want to go find a unit army, and then I can just go up and hit attack and pick up my march, pick my two things, and obviously you can expand the number of marches you have, but like initially you're going to start off with one until you research for the second march, which is really relatively easy to acquire. You really don't have to spend a whole lot of time. Like jumping into this game is really easy, really fast. It is frankly the fastest to get into really quickly without really a whole lot of stress involved at all. Now, I will say that, like, given that, I've only kind of hopped around in Guns of Glory, just, momentarily, right? Is this worth your time? Is this worth a game to try? I honestly would say my 2 cents on this game is that you're gonna enjoy playing this game if you're looking for something that is just kind of a time killer. And in terms of the pay to win aspect of it, I think this game's definitely got its teeth in there. It's deep, but it's like one of those things where there's so few people that play it, I think. And the few that do, there's not like a strict borderline. Like I haven't run into anybody that goes around and just like terrorizes players. Like that's the one thing I kind of like about these kind of games is that I can just hop into them and I can just casually sit around and play it and not worry about somebody coming around to mollywop my entire alliance, because there aren't any players that are going around mollywopping. Like that's just not something they do. Yeah, once in a while, I'm sure after a couple of weeks that my attitude here will probably change and things will get a little bit more serious, but like right now, it's just like when you're starting out, there really isn't that kind of like you're not going to run into that. I honestly have not run into it. I don't even think it's really that common. If your experience is different, then oh well, sorry. But needless to say that's so far that's been what I've learned from Guns of Glory. Now, as far as like where do I check to see what my stats are? Right, little nitty itty bitty things. Because obviously you've got talents, right? And so like in here, you can actually set up bookmarks. It's literally babying me through how to do all of it. But I mean, most of it's pretty straightforward. These are skills. So you can pop a skill, get, extra loot. And there's various different skills. I mean, as you might imagine, just for different weapons, different things that you can acquire over time. There's quite a bit. Of course, we haven't even looked at the gear sets, so I mean, stick with me, guys, because I'll go through all of it with you. But more or less, okay, so like you've got like your daily quests, and then you have your main quests. So just like any of these games, right? You've got all that, but like so, for example, if I tap here at the top, You can see this is kind of like how you can set up your lineups and such. Now, it'll tell you kind of what your perceived percentage of troops are, which is kind of nice for ratios, plus how many troops you're sending, and then perceived actual strength of said march. Then obviously you can set up troop formations if you want, whether or not you want to send your airship or not, which heroes you want to use, whether or not you want to equalize it. You've got some options and choices there. No, so like for example, if let's say we wanted to poke around and actually look at our individual stats under detail, I will say one thing that is kind of handy to know is that you can go to your talents in here, and then you can set your talents for war. So like for example, once you get to VIP 12, you can have quick talents, but basically you can set up one set of talents for when you're going around and attacking, one set of talents when you're actually just kind of chilling, and then you've got your balance, which from what I understand is just really kind of more or less it's steered towards pretty much just like when you're doing buildings, when you're going around hitting other threats floating around, like that's really all balance tree is. But I think most people starting out are probably going to dump most of their talent points like I did into the economy tree, just because there's so much downtime in between once you get to the point where your upgrades are like a couple hours plus at a time, right? Of course, now if we look at the map, I mean, as you might imagine, the map is fairly massive. So this is where I am in relation to the map. Now you might notice these little icons here, and so here I'll show you what I'm talking about here. So like for example, basically on the map. So here you can see this is kind of like how the nodes are spread out. So like right now I'm in a level 4 resource zone, but obviously you can get up to level 6, which is the highest level nodes. Now of course, if you're wondering what these are basically just alliance leader forts and bases that are out and around. Of course, you can also go by kingdom. So, in my case, I'm in Kingdom 910, but obviously there are various different kingdoms out there. Just like in any of these type of games, you've got a lot of different kingdoms that are out there. Of course, if let's say you wanted to go 2-1, it gets a little bit more tricky. I'm sure I could probably make another video covering that if at all, if it helps you kind of understand it. But like, anyway, the main thing here is, given what I've told you so far, right? The other thing that we should probably look at is actually the gear itself. So if you go into the forge is where all the gear is in the game. Okay, and so like in here, the way they've got gear set up, obviously your Kingdom Glory set's like your best set, and you can see how ridiculous the numbers are. They're like 20,000%. Like, okie dokie, that's way, way, way up there, right? And obviously, just like anything, you would expect that that's probably not going to be acquired through natural means. Like, you probably can't spend to get that, is my guess. That's probably acquired from, but I don't know, it says obtained from packs, so maybe it is. What do I know? But, obviously they have different sets, so like here you've got 12,000%, you got 7,000% with the King set, 5,000% with the Genesis set, 2,700 with the Abyssal set, 1,500 with Sea King, 800 with Silver Dragon, 477 with Bloodtooth, and then 265 with the Pursuer, 155 with Buccaneer. You see how this starts to work, and basically it's a progressive build up to these sets. And so a lot of your time is going to be spent just kind of progressively working up to those sets, And so I would imagine that they're probably time-based in some fashion because, to be honest with you, I really haven't ran too far deep into this to know, like, exactly at what point do you acquire, like, the scrolls, but also the gold. And as you can see, the cost of the gold is going to be also something you have to take into consideration or a factor into this. So that's something else that you have to kind of look at. But again, it's just, that's where all the different sets are for battle sets. Now, if you're talking economy sets, obviously they've got their own set of, like from everything from gathering speed to march speed, like you can look at like even the best sets here and, there's sets directly set up just for training speed. They've got different sets for, just iron or just doing research or just doing construction, just doing rally, or just, so they have their sets set up in such a way that it's really straightforward. Like, you don't really have to think too much about it. You have a set for this, a set for that, and then they'll take your money as they please, right? But more or less, that's kind of what you need to know as far as that is concerned. Now, as far as like going around and actually, like, I don't know, I guess since I've been wanting to get to this, I guess I might as well just go ahead and show you. But like, for example, so say like, for example, I want to hit this guy, and then I want to know what am I able to do stat-wise, right? You can just go up here, and this will show you the percentage of what troop types you have and what you're going to send when you're sending it, right? But you can also go over and do this. So what you do is you just tap on your Lord's profile here, and then you hit the little exclamation point right here. And as you can see, this will tell you your combat stats. It'll tell you what you won and what you lost. It'll tell you what your power is. But the main thing here is the military. Tab will actually tell you what your current stats are. So in here you can actually see what your cav, your inf, your range, your cav, your artillery, what the damage, what the received rates are. It'll also tell you what your research, construction, upload, all that stuff is all in here. Which is terribly, terribly hard to find at first when you're in this game, but it's really straightforward. It's just right there. But again, these are all things that I think are pretty helpful. Obviously, if you wanted to see where you are in relation to other players, you would just go to the leaderboard here on the right. And then in here, you can actually see where you line up across the board. You can also see who's got the highest amount of kills, who has the most set of heroes. So like right now, it looks like in terms of solar power, it looks like Adamontes is 162 mil already, just in this state, or at least in this kingdom alone, which is pretty crazy. And just in the alliance that I'm in, which is Val, this guy's already, kind of working his way up. And again, this is just where people are, and this is just kind of what they do. But again, if you're wanting to progress super, super fast, and you're wanting to do this, then I recommend checking the tab at the top left, and that will get you started into the game really easily, because basically if you're wanting to upgrade really, really quickly, then basically the only way to do it is through money. And if you're going to do it, might as well do it cheap. So, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys to the next video.